Hey, Terry, we're live now. Whenever you're ready, Northborough Cable. Whenever you're ready, Madam Chair.
You ready? Okay. Call this open meeting of the Fire Station Building Committee to order. This open meeting of the Fire Station Building Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter A of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 28th, 2023. All members of the Fire Station Building Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Fire Station Building Committee to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Chair confirms that the board members and the persons anticipated on the agenda are remotely present and can be heard by stating the following. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Okay, I have Dan Brillhart.
Here.
Mitch Cohen.
Hello.
John Rappa.
Present.
Chief Parente.
Here.
And Don Rand. And staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. I have Sean Thompson.
Here.
Okay. So that confirms everybody.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29, 2023. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. Okay, no in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. Okay, it's on the Zoom webinar. First item we have is the approval of the minutes from January 10th, 17th, 31st, 2024 meetings. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the January 10th meetings?
Madam Chair, a motion to accept minutes from the previous meetings.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Dan?
Aye.
Chief Parente?
Aye.
Mitch?
Aye.
And John?
Aye.
And Dawn is aye. Okay, that brings us to the approval of the minutes of the 17th of 2024. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. To approve as
Make a motion
presented.
to accept the minutes.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Dan?
Aye.
Chief?
Aye.
Mitch?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Okay, and the motion for the approval of minutes on January 31st, 2024. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Dan?
Aye.
The Chief?
Aye.
Mitch?
Aye.
And John?
Also aye.
And I. Okay, that brings us to HKT design updates. Okay, Janet?
I've got the PowerPoint actually. I'm gonna
Alright,
share
Janet?
my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, so we're just gonna, it's sort of the usual agenda for us here, schedule update, design updates, and then we'll talk to you a little bit about next steps. The schedule is pretty much what you saw the last time. We have a couple little changes here from what we talked about last time. We're still working on getting the cost estimate. The cost estimator has all the documents. We got those to him as planned, and he's already working on it, has been sending some questions to us and to the engineers. So that's ongoing, and our plan is to meet with a committee on February 28th to share the results of the schematic design cost estimate. The dates of some of the boards that we were going to meet with have shifted a little bit. We had talked about the design review meeting happening, I think was it 2 weeks earlier than this, Janet?
No,
But
1 week,
as
just 1 week.
1 week, 1 week earlier than this, which would have meant that we would have had to get the documents to them, I think, this week. And we realized that there just was more work that needed to be done than we really could do that. We wanted to make sure that we met with you and that we had time to react to your comments for the things that we're showing you tonight and everything. So we checked in with them to see if we could push that out a little bit. And so our plan now is to meet with them on February 29th. Similarly, we had talked about meeting with the planning board and needing to get documents to them this week in order to make that happen. And when we checked in with our civil engineers, PAR, about that, they said there just was too much work that needed to be done, that they really needed about 6 weeks to get the work done for the planning board submission because they had to do stormwater calculations and all. And really the site plan that gets submitted to the planning board needs to be the final plan. And we're just not quite there yet. So we're pushing that out a little bit. By this schedule, we're planning on submitting documents for the planning board by March 18th and then meeting with the planning board on April 16th. So those are the revised dates for that. We're still on track with zoning. So that we're going to be meeting with them March 26th. And we need to get documents to the planner by February 27th for that meeting. So for that, we need to have some discussions about the training and hose tower, which is one of the things that we want to show you some options of tonight. The rest of the schedule is what you've seen before. There are no changes to the rest of the schedule based on those dates. So does anyone have any questions before I move on? Okay.
Amy, I do, Amy.
Yep.
In our meeting with the design review committee a few weeks back, among other things, they asked for a 3D rendering of the building. Will you be prepared to do that?
I think the 3D rendering that they are looking for is one that has like the plantings and all. So we have to work with a landscape architect to come up with a final plan for that. We have been showing them some 3D imagery, and we will continue to show the 3D imagery just like we've been showing to all of you. But we have to work with the landscape architect to get the planting on it, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen for the next meeting.
Okay.
Or not.
My impression, it was about the building envelope, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I think they want to see it all together.
Okay.
At least the examples that were shared with us, that's what
Fine.
that's what they had. So
Okay.
Can I,
Thank you.
quick question, Chief, Mark's trying to get in, but they won't let him in as a panelist. So he can't actually get into the meeting and be seen.
Oh,
Um,
and we'll have him come in as an attend. Oh, what do you mean I won't let him come in?
yeah, they won't let him come in. So
Okay.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but he's
No,
texting
no.
me on the
Give
side.
me a minute. I'll send him a new invite. Okay.
Okay, all right,
Give him the passcode.
yeah.
okay. So this is an update to the site plan that we wanted to share with you. We had a meeting with PAR, the civil engineers at PAR, after our last meeting, and talked to them about a number of issues with the site. There were a lot of things going on, and through that conversation, we came up with an idea that we thought would really improve the site plan for a whole lot of reasons. And that was, let me get my pointer here so you can see. In the previous schemes, we had the fire department parking over on this side of the site. And if we move it to the back of the site here, it really frees up a lot of space east to west, and it allows us to do a number of things. It allowed us to create a little bit of a green strip along the retaining wall on the west side of the site, which gives us room for plantings, for site lighting, for electric vehicle charging, and for snow storage. It creates a larger planting area over on the east side of the site, which could also be used for snow storage. It also, with a little bit more area over here, there's a chance that PAR can grade to accommodate the changes in grades. They have more space to just regrade the site, and they can cut back on the length of the retaining wall needed on this site. It allowed us to create a little bit wider sidewalk along this side of the building. And then it screens the fire department parking a little bit more from the street. So it did a whole lot of really good things. We had a meeting with the fire department to run this by them before we went too far, and they seemed to be in approval of it. They thought it was really good for their operations as well. And then we're still showing the dumpster enclosure and the generator enclosure back sort of screened behind the building and the transformer over here. So, so that's what we've been proceeding with. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
One question. So the retaining wall now has a little zigzag just to the left, if you will, of the employee parking.
Yes.
The retaining wall behind the employee parking, has that been moved further back behind the building, or was the left side of that with the public parking moved forward?
This has moved back a little bit.
Okay.
There was always a little bit of a jog here, but we did have to move it back a little bit. The good news is that the grades are sloping down when you come to this side of the site. So that's the lower portion of this wall. So it does have to get a little bit taller as we push it back, but we thought all in all, it really was a beneficial move for the plan.
Many wins, Mitch,
Yeah.
along
Oh, yeah.
the rest
Yeah.
of the site. So
Yep. I agree. I
yeah.
agree. Yeah. My
Okay.
first question when you presented it was I wanted to make sure that the department was good with it. And it sounds like you are, Chief.
Yeah, well, we talked about it extensively. We see what we really like moving the parking to the back because it
Yeah.
screens the vehicles back there. And it's no parking on the side for people to just swing in and think they can park there,
Right.
right? So we don't have to worry about putting the gate up there necessarily, all that. I mean, we have the ability, but we don't necessarily have to. So, excuse me, we thought that was a really good thing. This answers a couple of the questions. It answers the big question of snow storage, which we're really happy about. Answers the question about some of the walks, the sidewalks on the side of the building, which we were happy about. It also allows us to still have that pathway, or not that pathway, that 12-foot wide driveway.
Mhm.
Hang on, Mark's texting me at the same time I'm trying to talk to you guys. Yeah, I can see you're not. Oh, there he is. He just came in. I will promote you in a second, Mark. There you go. I just promoted him. Those are all really positive things. We did talk about moving the gate to the center of that roadway, not at the end, but right in the center, which will give us snow storage on both ends. So it gives us even more snow storage if we do need it. I spoke with DPW, and I'm sure Sean could speak to this, but Scott said, again, the idea of this is it's an emergency. We can't get trucks out the other way. We can get trucks out that way. DPW can get right there, clean it out within 15 minutes, and we'll be fine. So we thought that was addressed a lot of the concerns that we have. We also talked a little bit about trees, and I don't know if Amy and Janet are going to be talking about the street trees versus the trees on the street side, but I'll let them speak to that.
yeah, we'll be updating the with your approval tonight. Everybody's waiting for the approval of this change. It's not a significant change, but it is. I mean, it's overall the plan is in the same location. They're going to add street trees up in the front of the building, about 10 feet off the face of the building. There'll be some street trees added, and when they get the final plan approved, then they'll resubmit those plantings. They already had a planting thing, and they'll develop a whole thing, and they'll develop planting along the side, what kind of column or trees they might be able to plant and those things. So they're working on that, but they are waiting until tomorrow till we hear from you folks, if you're okay with it. And we also pulled back the grassy space on the east side of the apparatus
Right.
bays. We talked to Scott Charpentier, and I think Sean, you were there maybe at that class, so that's been pulled back a little bit to answer the questions for the DPW. So that's been changed. That's a change as well that is responsive to a question that's been asked. So
Any other questions? Okay, how about a
Okay.
vote? Do I hear a vote to approve this new site plan?
Or a motion to accept it,
A
right?
motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept the new site plan as presented.
Second.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second, to vote. Dan,
Aye.
Mitch,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Chief,
Aye,
and aye.
there you go.
Okay,
Great. Okay.
it's a great plan.
So the next thing I'm going to show you is PAR has been looking at the retaining wall wrapping around the site and what our options are for the retaining wall. This first slide, I'm sorry, I've got some of these Zoom boxes are sort of blocking my view. So let me see if I can move things a little bit so that I can see what I'm doing here. Okay. So PAR's been looking at different options here for the retaining wall. So what you're seeing here is what was just on the plan that we shared with you before. And the concept was to have this retaining wall wrap around the site and just be what they were calling as a straight wall. This is a section through the wall. So at its highest point over here, it would be about 30 feet tall. And the sections of the blocks step back so that from the base to the top, it would step back about 2'10". And this, because of the height of the wall and the how steep it is here, that they would need something called geogrid to support the soil behind it. It's a polymer fabric that's installed in horizontal layers between some of the blocks, and it extends back into the soil, and it just sort of increases the overall mass of the wall and gives it some structural stability. So for this scheme, they would definitely need the geogrid. The next options I'm going to show you start to look at some options for terracing, some where we would still need the geogrid, some where we wouldn't need the geogrid. One of the things that we talked about with PAR, and the chief can talk about this too, is when the neighbor over on this site installed their retaining wall on their property, they were doing it to retain soil that extended over onto this property. Now that we are trying to cut down the site, when we put a wall along here, we're really ending up with two walls on the two properties, retaining this hill that's sort of artificial at that point, not necessarily needed for the functioning of either of these two properties. So one of the things we talked about with PAR was, is there a way to reduce the amount of retaining wall that we need on our site and cut down that hill some? It would require coordination with the neighbor in order to do that. Whether that's even something that's possible to talk about what work would need to be done on their property in order to make that happen, we don't really know. But what we said to the chief when we talked to him about this is that no matter what, during construction, when we build this wall, even if we build the wall to the extent we're showing here, we're going to need to coordinate with that neighbor anyway to install the geogrid and to clean up some of the existing vegetation that's on that hill and all. So it's good to start those conversations now and just to have an open line of communication, see what works and what doesn't work for the two landowners as we proceed with all of this. So the next option I'm going to show you is a batter wall. So in this scheme, it's sort of a combination of the straight wall and the batter wall. On the side of the property, on the east and west walls, you'd still need that straight wall. There's just not enough room between the wall and the property line to create this batter wall. But in the back, on the south wall here, we could have this batter wall, and this is a section through the batter wall, and you can see the blocks step back farther for each block that's up there. It's stepped back a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So that with the traditional straight wall that you're showing here from the base of the wall to the top of the wall at the 30-foot corner, you'd have a depth of 2'10". But with the batter wall from the base of the wall to the top of the wall back over here, you have about 17 feet, 2.5. So from here to here, the horizontal distance is about 17 foot, 2.5. You're going back into the hill as you do that because the grades are continuing to rise up in the hill. So the wall ends up being a little bit taller. At this point, it ends up being 31 feet rather than the 30 feet that we saw on the straight wall. But because it's stepping back, it doesn't feel quite, we don't think it would feel quite as tall to a person, standing in one of these parking spaces, for example, on the site. So in this case, this, where we have the straight walls, we know we would need the geogrid. Where we have the battered wall, right now, PAR doesn't anticipate that they need it, but they need to do a little bit more research, a little bit more engineering to make sure that they wouldn't need the geogrid in this scheme. So that was the second. The third thing we looked at was what would happen if we started to introduce some terracing. So in this option, in number 3, again, we have the straight walls on the east and west property lines, and those would require the geogrid. But then we introduce a battered wall along the south property line with a terrace. And so here's the section through it. So in this case, you would be going up to about 9'6". We picked a height here, 9'6" for the first lowest retaining wall. And then there would be a planting bed. And it could, here we're showing 20 feet. It could be less than that. It could be 10 feet. And then we start to introduce another battered wall to go up. Now, in this case, we're pushing further back into the site. The grades are rising even more. So the overall height of or the overall grade change from the parking area down here to the top of the wall back here ends up being about 36 feet 6 inches, plus or minus. And then the overall depth ends up being 40 to 50 feet from the base of the wall here to the top of the wall back here. So it's going back quite a ways on the site. One of the drawbacks of this is access to this terrace and planting bed. There's really no way to create a connection to the grades up here. This is a straight wall right here. So if someone is going to get into this terrace to maintain plantings there, they're really going to have to do it from the parking lot level with a ladder that goes up the 9'6". So it would be difficult to get any, mowing equipment or anything. You'd be doing handwork, maybe a weed whacker. That's how you'd have to maintain any plantings up
I
in
will
there.
say I've spoken to the landscape architect. Sorry, Amy, I didn't mean to jump in there.
That's
but you're
okay.
done. And he did say, whatever they would plant up there would be native stuff and that might need to be maintained once a year. So we're not talking about a regular event here. We're
Right.
talking about once a year. He said max. If you didn't want to do anything ever, you don't have to do anything ever, but you'd want to get in there and clean it out. So that is the level of care to this terrace once a year, max.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
So this is the fourth option that we looked at for terracing. Again, on the east and west property lines, you'd have the straight wall and you'd need the geogrid. But here, we're terracing this wall, and because of the way we're terracing it, we won't need the geogrid. We're breaking it down into 3 different terraces. So there are 4 different walls here. And each of the walls, well, the first 3 walls are about 10'6" high, these 3, and then this one is 7'6". And in between each of them is a terrace. Here we're showing them about 16 feet deep. And in this case, they connect to the grades up in the upper level here. So to maintain them, you'd be able to come in off Monroe Street and then access the planting beds off of Monroe Street. It's steep there, but you would be able to access them there. I know there was some concern about, that anything we do back here wouldn't preclude you from having parking or anything up in that upper area in the back. One thing that PAR did suggest is that when they write the specifications for these walls, they can include loading for future parking so that these walls could handle if you put parking up on the upper level. They said that would be a nominal additional cost, but if that's something that the town wanted to do in the future, that's what they would advise doing for the walls.
Off mute.
Okay, any
I'm
questions?
sorry.
No, I think, is that the last one, Amy? for
No,
the walls?
one more.
Okay.
One more.
I'm sorry. I think you
No.
froze for a minute, or I froze for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead, Emmy. They thought
Okay.
yeah.
So this is the last option that we wanted to show you, and this is with the 2 terraces, 3 walls. Again, we have the straight walls on the east and west side, and then the terraced walls in the back here. Each of these walls is 12 feet tall, and then the terraces are 18 feet deep. So the overall height back in this corner of the walls would be 36 feet. And the terrace depth ends up being 45'10". Again, you have access into each of these terraces from the upper parking area. So, does
That's
anyone
the
have
last one.
questions?
That
That's
is
the last
one.
one. So
There
if
are
anyone
5.
wants to have any questions,
Any
Yep.
questions? Discussion?
I have one if that's all right. Looking at this one, so you said there's how many feet between each of the three terraces?
this is showing 18 feet.
18 feet. Okay, so that's quite a bit. Is it possible to plant real trees in that area? I don't know if roots would get it, cause problems with the material or anything else. I'm thinking about, in theory, if you plant a tree, that might be of whatever the height is of that wall once it grows,
Yep.
that it might help obscure the wall itself.
Yes, the landscape architect did say that he could work with these terraces and plant trees in them.
Yeah, Amy, can I answer that?
Yeah.
There was concern, PAR is concerned about the overall the height of larger trees. The recommendation is to plant shrubs or smaller ornamental
Yeah.
trees.
Yeah.
I have
Chief.
more of a comment and a question, and I've seen these before, so that's why I'm just because it was part of the site change. I really like the second option with the single terrace with a batter wall. I think you get the best of both worlds with that. That you get the 9 foot up, and then you have a nice planting area there, but you don't have this 36 foot or not 36, whatever the other one was, like 40 some feet. You don't have this big a wall. I think it's more attractive than the other one. Just my opinion.
So the overall height, you're talking about this one, Chief?
Yeah, I like the battered wall. I think it's
Yep.
I think it's an attractive look with the wall stepping back.
Mhm.
And it gives us a single terrace that we can work off, and we can access it. We do have ladders laying around here somewhere.
Yes.
So we can
Some of the best
access
ladders
them.
around.
Yeah, we can access that 9
Yeah.
feet. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
I'm worried the other one having all those, the
Yeah.
last two we looked at, the terraced one, I think is gonna look bigger because there's so many terraces.
Mhm. Yeah, I like this one too. At the beginning of this, you talked about possibly eliminating that hill between this property and the one next door. I love that idea.
I don't know that we'll be able to eliminate it
Yeah.
completely. I
Yeah.
think their parking lot is still about 6 feet higher than
Yeah.
Our parking lot, but the goal would be potentially to reduce the amount of retaining that
Yeah.
we would need to have
Yeah.
along that.
Yeah.
If I may, I'm gonna ask is if Captain Brillhart can jump in. Him and the deputy went over and did a walk through there to look at the how much of the wall was there. There's actually two walls there, right, Cap?
Yes, there's the existing granite style that starts by the street and runs up to the side of the building. And then it goes to the other wall that we probably don't want to get anywhere near, which is by the back parking lot.
There.
So the first wall we can probably get into and clean it out and
Yes.
level it out. We don't want
Yep.
to touch the second wall. I'm concerned with the condition of the second wall.
Yeah. Amy, can I see number 4? So you still have the geogrid on the west side, right? And then you're terracing it from there.
You're going to always have geogrid on the east and west
Okay,
sides.
yep, okay,
Every case, because we just don't have enough room to not.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the difference between 4 and 5 is the depth of the terraces, at least?
It's
Yes?
the number of the terraces. So here we've got 4 walls and 3 terraces, and
Right.
they are different depth. Here they're 16 feet. Here we've got 3 walls and 2 terraces, and the terraces are
Okay.
18 feet.
Okay, yeah. I think I like this one versus the others. So you're number 5.
You quickly step through them. I just want to get the height on all 5.
Sure.
And they are
Start back.
approximate, Mitch. This is
Yeah.
just,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
No,
so it's just a study, just so everybody knows. It's a plus
Yep.
or
Yep.
minus, but 30. Okay.
They're about 30
So
at the max.
These are the
So-
high point,
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yep,
Yep.
high point at the corner here. This one's
Yep.
about 30. And then about 31 for number 2. For number 3, we're at about 36'6". For number 4, 39 feet. And number 5, 36 feet.
Okay. So 3 and 5 are essentially identical.
Yeah.
3.
How about cost wise?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I assume the more material you use, the more expensive it's going to be.
Yeah.
Well, it's also it's not necessarily more material because these walls are it's spreading the materials out among multiple
Right.
terraces, and maybe there is a little more material. It's more about the cut and how much soil you're cutting out, and then about whether you need the geogrid or not, I think. So we did send earlier versions of these schemes to the cost estimator to price out the different options. And he is working on it. But now I don't have my notes in front of me, Janet, that we looked at this earlier today
do
about
have
you do have it? Okay. So the difference in the cut amounts, it was.
Yeah, the battery. So there's a total cubic yards of material that come out for the site for the building and everything. But when you do just the batter wall, it's an additional 2,500 cubic yards of material that comes out. And then when you go up from that, the most amount of material coming out is up to 5,000 cubic yards, so double that. And that's with one terrace at 20 feet, which is this one. That has the most cubic yards coming out. And then the other two are around the 4,000 cubic yards. So it's between 2,500 and 5,000 additional cubic yards to get these walls in, beyond the straight wall. So, it's something to consider. But again, Amy was right, not having our geogrid required is a savings. And, so it'll be a balance somewhere. And a lot of this is, what will look the best, what will feel the best, what does the town, what's the town interest in choosing one versus another. So those are the differences, anywhere from 25 to 5,000 cubic yards differences between the schemes.
And you guys said this won't have any parking, any impact on additional parking, because one of the things we talked about in the past was if we wanted to do parking up above there, and I thought that if we didn't go as far deep, if we did just the batter wall that doesn't go as far back, if that's easier to do parking back there than if we do all these extra terraces. I don't know.
I think the concern we had was whether you would need to remove some of this wall in the future to accommodate parking in that area. PAR's suggestion that they structure the wall so that it could accommodate parking up there in the future was, part of that concern, and that definitely helps with that. I think, some of these start to come farther back on the site. And so, yes, that would potentially impact a parking layout. We, haven't looked at parking layouts in that upper area, but you can just sort of see visually how far back that those walls and that development gets. Part of the problem too with parking up in this area is just accessibility and who would actually be able to use that. Once there's the width of this drive right here, there's 30 feet. And so to get a drive and a sidewalk in there is a bit of a challenge to get a two-way drive. You might get a one-way drive and a sidewalk and all, but given the grades, I'm not sure that you'll be able to have those spaces be handicap accessible. So that might be a challenge for having public parking up there. You might be able to have employee parking up there in the future, but that would really need to be studied.
And there's no way,
more.
and there's no way to get a ramp, probably, coming down between, say, the bank property and the wall, trying to get there, and then where do you land when you get to the bottom? Is an accessibility a bit of a problem in any case, and whether you'd be building a flat, a on-grade parking lot, or actually building a structure could make a big difference too, because the grades are pretty steep there. So you'd be doing a lot of carving to make parking work up there anyhow, Mitch and John, whoever, but all of you asked that question because, it's not a simple site to put a parking
Right, right.
parking on, so.
Amy, a question for clarification, please. You're talking about incremental cubic yards between 2,500 and 4,000 to 5,000 cubic yards. Is that the material in the walls, or is that everything?
No, that's the existing soil that would be
Okay.
removed in
Removed.
order
Right.
to terrace the land.
Right. Okay. And then let's call that labor. Materials for the walls are separate.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Those are
Good.
separate. Yep.
Okay.
Question on the height of these walls. I know we're talking about I think it must be the southwest corner being the highest at 30 feet in the original, and you've mapped it out well here. And I know it slopes down as you go further to the east.
Mm-hmm.
What is the height at the, if you know, even on the original, just as a point of reference, sort of the midpoint and the furthest east of that wall?
Mark has the best option at this. I want to say 17 feet on the far east, but Mark, you remember that at all? You did some modeling of that.
Well, I think it's somewhere between 12 and 16 feet on the eastern portion of the wall.
Yeah.
And then it's at the, it goes up pretty quickly between the two.
Right.
So
it's a pretty gradual slope up.
Okay. You have a rough guess as to
Sorry?
where it would be at that midpoint, sort of where that jog is on this particular one?
I'd split the difference between 30 and 16 feet. So,
So 28
20,
or no, it's
25 feet, 25 feet roughly, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's,
here's
I don't know
the,
offhand, but-
I don't know if you can still see, but at the corner, right? Can you see my pointer?
Yep.
I do.
Oh, okay. At the corner here, you're at about 325 and a half. And we're at what, 304 for the parking here. So you're about 20 feet right
18,
there.
20 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Amy and Mark, a clarification. Go back to your larger view here towards the street. Yes, thank you. The western wall, the corner towards the street level. What's the anticipated height at that very corner? Is that 30 or so feet or less?
Oh, no,
that's
that's much less. That's much
That's
less.
at grade.
That,
It's at
yeah,
grade.
Yep. Okay. I
Or-
thought so. Thank you.
yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a 308 or 307 is
Yep.
that edge
Yep.
of that wall. So,
Yep. Thank you.
and you're going from 302 to 304, you're sloping a bit back in, but
Okay.
not very tall there.
No.
And that's where we'd like to see if we can't manage that grading there better with the agreement with the neighbors.
So one question I have is, so on all of these, I think on all of these, we're doing something for terracing or whatever on the entire back wall. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering whether we need to do it on that entire wall, because the eastern half is shorter. Not that it's short, but it's, 20 feet or less.
So you're thinking like batter the east and terrace the west side? Is that what you're getting to?
Something kind of
Yeah,
like that,
I mean-
as a way of, one, keeping it a little bit simpler, as well as preserving a little bit more of the land to the south for future parking, by disturbing less of that soil there. Again, whether that really helps us or not, I don't know, but that came to mind when you were talking about it.
And Amy, if you were to take Mitch's suggestions, how intricate is it for you to estimate Mitch's version versus another? I'm trying to look at the cost effectiveness of doing that versus this as currently designed.
We'd really need PAR's help to take a look at that and
Okay.
figure out what
All
it
right.
would look like and how
Just
much.
curious. I'm just curious on
Yeah.
the cost benefit. It's
Yeah.
going to be significant money. We'll have to decide as a committee in terms of, what do we want to give up?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do think it's worth some money to make the highest point, that sort of the southwest half of the rear wall, make it look a little bit better. That's going to cost us money, but I think it is worthwhile to do.
Just to clarify, Mitch, you're talking about terracing in
Yeah.
this area here and
Yep.
then trying to batter in this area here. Is
Yeah, I
Correct.
think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Batter or straight, which
Or
I think I
better
like.
or
I
straight,
like.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I like my gut feeling is I like the batter better. Say that 10 times fast. But I'm curious as to cost difference. I don't know. I mean, obviously there's more material removed and more material for the wall, but I don't know how much of a difference that is. I think that might also keep the wall kind of looking more smooth going across. The first terrace might be up kind of similar to the height of the east side once you end up doing that whole thing.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, not exactly. I wouldn't expect it to be flat straight across. But it wouldn't you wouldn't see as much of this slope
Yeah,
in the
I think
wall.
the one thing that we were trying and Barbara was trying to do was make those terraces always accessible to the DPW.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if the walls start to connect, whether that takes that edge off. We'd have to ask them.
Yeah.
These walls, as you can, I mean, we've gone many rounds, of these walls, and it's obviously not simple,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of
No, I appreciate
options to
you.
the yeah.
Appreciate
So
you clearly spending a lot of time on this.
yeah,
This
well,
is
it's
good.
important. It's important.
Yeah. I think having them be accessible has pros and cons. I think if they're too accessible, we'll find people just sort of wandering on.
It in all cases, Mitch, there'll be a fence at the top of these walls.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not shown on the drawings, but there will be a fence on the
Yep.
top of all these walls.
Yeah.
Yep.
And as the chief said, he has good ladders. So
Yeah.
Gonna say he's got an aerial ladder to get over there.
Yeah. So
you might
Okay.
be able to just pull the ladder truck out front and send the ladder out back.
one of the things that we will be wanting to do with this is to share it with the design review committee, who's very concerned about the terrace walls too. So, we want to put something you guys are happy with. I'm going to go back to Amy. Could you go back to one for a second?
Yes.
I think we can take one out of the mix. Probably. Is that true?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, it helps us to kind of slim it down a little bit. So one is out. Two is possible still, because it could be a little less, almost the least costly one with the batter wall possible option. So that's a possibility. Three is also something that the chief likes. And I know that Mitch, you like three as well. So that's a possible.
Mhm.
Four, number four is I didn't hear a lot of big pluses for four at all. Anybody like four?
I think it's too much. I think there's too many
Okay.
terraces.
Okay.
To me, there is.
I'm happy to take one out. And number five is this one was we talked quite a bit about too. That's still in. It just, we can talk to Par about, some of the questions you asked and, maybe two of these get combined or something like that. And then we could possibly share these with the design review committee too with your approval. It's up to you and whether they can add in their thoughts to it too, what they feel. But it's certainly your committee's decision. But we are going to go to the design review committee, and we can either not show them the wall until you make a decision, or we can share some of this.
I think it would be good to get their input on it.
Okay.
I would agree. I'd like at least the three that we identified, two, 3, and 5, right? I'd like to at least have those three available for them to look at and see what they think about it.
Okay, can do. All right,
All right.
excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
Moving on.
None? Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Okay.
Don? Okay.
Okay. So the next thing we want to show you is some sign options. We have 6 different options to show you for a sign out in front of the building. All of them are incorporating some sort of LED signboard. All of the LED signboards and all of the options are the same size. They're about 30 inches by 5 feet. And all of them, we've set that LED sign so it's a couple feet off the ground. So if there's snow on the ground or something, the LED sign is still visible to people passing by. So those were the parameters we were working with all of the options here. So these first two we're kind of saying or calling them double masonry piers with a base. So each of them has a masonry pier on either side of the LED sign, and then there's some sort of base, masonry base that the LED sign sits on. We've incorporated the brick from the building and some of the banding from the building on these options, as well as the concept was that this sign would, match the color of whatever we do for the doors and some of the other elements, windows and everything on the building. We have our scale figure here, so you can get a sense of the size of these. These are about the same size, each of them. The only difference in these two schemes is that this sign on the top that says Northborough Fire, this one is a rectangle. This one has a little bit of a curve, which evokes the arches that we have in the building. We've got those two. These, excuse me, are masonry piers, similar to what we had before, but no base under the LED sign. So we've got the masonry piers on either side that again has the same materials as in the building, and then a larger sign at the top with Northborough Fire, and one option with the curve and the arch, and the other one with the rectangle of it. These get to be quite a bit taller. This is 7 feet tall. This is a little bit taller just because of the curve. This is 7'3" tall. They're 8'8" wide, so a little bit bigger. And then these two we're calling a singular masonry pier with a base. So we've got a masonry pier on one side that sort of morphs into a base down below. The LED sign sits on top of it. The difference in these two, this one we have a metal rectangle piece here that says Northborough Fire. And this one, that piece turns the corner and comes down and meets the ground to sort of create an L-shaped frame around the LED signage. Each of these is about 5'4" tall, and they vary in width just because of the width of this element here. So this is about 7 feet wide, and then this one's about 7'8" wide. And we're not showing any banding on this. We could definitely incorporate banding if that's something people were interested in seeing as well. But we've got the same materials that we've got in the building, the two different masonry products we're looking at. So those are the 6 signs that we have to show you tonight. I don't know if anyone has any comments, questions, discussion.
Comments, Amy?
John?
The
Yeah.
first couple you showed,
Yep.
I think this one to the right with the arching is a continuity of the design we have in the building. I think that makes kind of logical sense.
Mhm.
I don't think it's overpowering. I think it's, of the 6 you have, it's makes some logical sense to me.
Okay.
Same thought for me.
That's 1, 2,
Three.
3. Kat, what do you think?
I'm good with that one.
Yeah, I agree. The next two I think I like them, but they're too big. And then
Yeah.
the last two, and I'm going to use the term that some people from the design review have been saying, they're too modern looking.
The M word.
Pardon?
The M word.
I'm just saying, So I really like that one with the slight arch to it on that first page.
So I think by agreement, we all do.
Yeah. A question, you may have said it at the beginning, how thick, if you will, is this from front to back, the shortest dimension?
Mark, you know that.
Yeah.
2 foot 10 inches.
Okay. The only downside that I see of that is as you're driving by, the
Yes.
thickness of the part closest to the road will block the sign a little bit earlier
Yes.
than the others.
Which is, that is why the next 2 got developed to the one on, because the last
two.
one, because you could
Yeah.
see it better.
That's
And-
that's the
but
only
we
thing I like
also-
about that one.
We may be able to pull the LED sign apart. It's a double-sided sign, so you see from
Oh, okay.
east and west, but they'll we could probably put material between them so that, they pull them closer to the surface. They won't look quite as, we won't have the recess,
Right.
but we'll work on that. I mean, we're
Yeah, I mean,
looking for a
if
direction.
it's recessed by a few inches,
Yeah.
I think that would look good.
Right.
Depends on the size of the font also, Mitch.
Yeah. Well, I'm more thinking about literally the brick blocking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
That's-
these are hard to place, by the way, this sign, wherever it goes. We don't have a
Mhm.
lot of site to do
It's
it.
there for 50 years.
Yeah, and we don't want it to block the view of the fire department. It wants to be west, obviously, of the site, but the more you pull it towards the road, the more it gets into the curve where you go down by hillside. So
Mhm.
the landscape architect and I, gosh, we had it in like 17 places and we didn't like any of the above. So that'll have to be resolved. But it'll be somewhere in that general range on the site plan. That's what we're thinking right now. So. Okay. So we need to work on a little bit, but okay.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
Do do you want us to show more than one of these to the design review? Do you want to pick
No.
just number 2? Okay.
I would have just that one that we all like.
Okay.
I think that's appropriate.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to be posting this on, just like, tomorrow morning, you'll send me a copy of this. I'll be posting it up on our page anyway.
Mhm.
So if they want, they can go there and see it, but yeah.
Okay.
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 Okay. All right. The last thing or design element we want to talk about is the tower. We have a number of options to show you on the tower, and it's sort of a bit of a progression, just how we've been working through design. We decided to show you a whole bunch of different things that we've looked at. I need to move some of the Zoom panels here again so that I can see. Okay. So this is the elevation that you've been seeing. This is the original tower that we showed you with this elevation. And I think we all felt like it needed some more development. So in this scheme, we had the tower is all masonry from top to bottom. And then the base here was this contrasting masonry material. We had punched window openings, minimal banding around the tower that picked up on some of the banding and the rest of the building. And then this circle was meant to represent a clock. Looking at the side view, we had a couple of recessed panels of masonry on the side, but there wasn't much else that we had really developed on this tower. From there, we started looking at some options. In this scheme, we still have the towers all masonry. We've brought that base material down. In the last scheme you saw, it went all the way up to this band here. Now we have that contrasting masonry material just with a base height similar to the other portions of the building. We've introduced an arch over the windows here. And we still have a clock or a seal or something. And when I go to the next perspective, you're going to see some recessed panels on the sides of the tower. We've also introduced this contrasting color material that we have in the doors and that picks up on the color of the windows and the doors over here and all. And we've created a vertical element with the windows linking them together. So here you see there's a recessed brick panel right here, and then some recessed panels up at the top of the tower here. That's option 1. So from there, we have this is our next exploration. It picks up on some of the elements of the last two. In this scheme, we brought that contrasting masonry material up. We started to introduce some recessed panels in it, a little relief in the masonry there to give a little bit of a texture interest. We flattened the arch a little bit here to be a little bit more similar to the other arches that we have in the building. Again, we have the clock or a seal. It could be a town seal or the Maltese cross or something up here. And we put that in a panel with an arch as well. And in this scheme, we have some arched openings, or not openings, but panels of some sort in the top of the tower here. And we have some more recessed masonry work, introducing some vertical elements on the tower on the sides. Then we decided to bring that contrasting material that you see here up to the top of the tower to try to break the tower mass up a little bit more. So you'll see that in the next few options that we've got. Here we again have that contrasting masonry material a little bit higher. We again have those bands that continue with the arch and the sort of vertical element with the windows. Here we introduced a Maltese cross. It could either just be a Maltese cross emblem or plaque, or it could actually be the face of a clock, could be the Maltese cross. And we started to introduce some glazing at the top. So here we've got some windows on both of the sides, solid in the front, and then windows on the sides of the tower. And then in this scheme, we took out the clock and put windows in the top of the tower, and we moved the Maltese cross plaque down below the windows in this panel here. And you can see we've got another recessed area, recessed panel area
Interesting.
there. So here we brought that contrasting masonry material down. We introduced some brickwork patterning perhaps into these recessed panels. We again have the banding that goes across, and we've got the windows at the top and the Maltese cross on the sides. And then you can see we brought that brick paneling, or I'm sorry, patterning into the panels on the side of the tower here. And then for this one, we have the reduced masonry. We've continued the banding. We've got the Maltese cross here in the windows. The difference here really is the paneling on the side. We've got these recessed panels, and we've divided them into two more vertical elements to emphasize the verticality of the tower. In this scheme, we've brought the clock back, and the clock is mounted over glass in this scheme. And again, we have the banding and the panels, and you can see we've got those vertical panels on the sides. And then this is the last one to show you. And here we've got a different window pattern. We've got the two windows side by side down low, and then we reduce it to one window up top with an arch across it. We've still got the glazing at the top, and still got the banding picking up from the other portions of the building. And the banding continues around the sides. We've got a little bit of recessed panel down at the base here. It's a lot of options to show you, so we decided to have them side by side and have a little village of towers on this slide so that you could be reminded of the ones that we just looked at. We're happy to go back to the other slides, but it's a lot to look at and a lot to talk about. I know. So for all of them, they're all the same height. The differences are really just the height of the masonry at all, but the height from grade to the roof structure in all of them is 56 feet. And then the structure is 10 or 12 feet. So the overall height we're looking at is about 68 feet from grade to the top of the roof.
I do want to mention one thing. We have, when we go to the zoning board, we have two issues for the zoning board. One is the setback, the building sitting back further than 20 feet from the edge of the road, and the other is this tower height. Because nothing else in the building exceeds zoning except for this tower. So it's very important as we go into the zoning that we have some consensus overall on the overall height and what we want it to be before we go to that meeting. One of the reasons we're making it is a big deal, but there will be continual work on this through design development, but you can see the concept of change. So,
question, Janet, for the chief.
Yeah.
What's the minimum height you need for hoses, for hanging hoses? 50 feet?
Yeah.
Okay, so everything above that is part of the expression gravy.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the 50 feet includes, a landing and then the structure to get over there and a person standing on that landing
Yep.
and then structure. That's how you get up to that 56
Got
feet,
it.
John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
So I really like number 7.
Same here. Yeah.
And I do too.
Can we see that in a bigger picture again, Janet,
Yep.
Amy?
There's the front
Hmm.
and the side.
Clock and windows.
Question for the chief. Does having windows at the top of that tower pose any positive or negative, natural light, glass of people running into it when they're training, anything like that?
No, I think it's nothing but positive. The natural light will add a tremendous amount when the guys are working in there, when they're doing training, when they're hanging hose. Hang on. I'm getting messages from the deputy telling me which one he likes. Hang on. So he likes 7, but with a different detail with the band on it. So yeah. No, I like the glass, Mitch. I think it adds.
Great.
I really like the Maltese cross, the clock in the Maltese cross, because that incorporates both the fire emblem as well as still having the clock.
You know, I did reach out to a clock manufacturer in Massachusetts that we've worked with before on other buildings, because I know there was some concern about maintenance of the clocks. And I asked him, you know, what he recommends and how often people typically have to maintain them. He said, as long as there aren't lights in the clock, like you're not backlighting the numerals or the hands or anything, generally you have to get up there and maintain it every 15 to 30 years. They're very low maintenance. And he pointed to the old Ashland fire station, the original Ashland fire station. The clock's been in there for over 100 years and it's still working just fine.
And Amy, the clock technology's changed over 100 years.
Oh, yeah.
Little
Chief,
bit.
a question on the tower again. With the addition of the windows, certainly you're going to hang your hoses and you've got a gravity feed to dry them out and a certain amount of ambient air. Does the lighting facilitate any of that drying?
No.
Do you think?
No, I don't
Okay.
think the lighting will have any effect on that.
Okay.
And again, so the way it works is, as Janet was saying, there's a landing up there. There'll be a winch that will bring the hose up. Back in my day, we used to have to do it with a rope, with a halyard and a pulley, right? So we'll have a winch that brings it up and they'll hang it on there. It's really just a natural movement of the air and the fact that they're hanging in there. I don't think the light would have any positive effect on it.
Thank you.
I mean, it's possible, but we haven't even talked to our engineers whether, some sort of a ventilated panel window or, is beneficial, it is it does carry, everything up. So we haven't even asked that yet. That's like the next step. That's way down the road.
Janet,
so-
the roof cupola, how big is that width-wise?
The
South and
dimensions,
east and west dimensions, yeah.
This dimension?
Yeah.
Mark, do you know that number offhand? I'd have to look.
Roughly.
I do not know offhand. It's necessary for the stair. So it's a brick dimension, but it's a little bit less. So that
Let's see.
I want to say 12 feet.
I was going to say 12
out to
feet,
out.
just looking at the size of the windows. I think.
And it
Yeah,
looks
those
like
windows-
it's deeper
yeah.
than that going back, right?
It is deeper than it going back.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's not a square.
it's a
Yeah,
rectangle.
yeah. Okay.
Which was the
Yeah, so it's-
challenge of, one of these towers is you see so many towers are rectangular. I mean, are squares.
Hmm.
So I think,
Can you guys go forward to where you had them all on the bottom?
Whoops.
So,
Sorry.
nope,
Hold on.
you were fine.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you look at the detail in number 4, where the window is, with the Maltese cross down there in the windows,
Mhm.
could that detail be incorporated in number 7?
You mean both the clock and
with
the
with the
Maltese?
Maltese
Sure,
cross.
sure. Mark probably had that and I made him take him out.
Or 5 is kind of the
did,
same
yeah.
thing. It just
I
has some,
did.
isn't 5 the same thing, just some contrasting colors?
Five is a little
No.
different because it has the brickwork.
That's
The
what I like the solid brickwork, so I like 5 better incorporated over in 7.
so five.
That
So,
makes sense.
so you're interested in the pattern brick at the base?
Yeah, I don't like I don't like the 4 panels of the different color in number 4.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yes.
like,
But
Yeah.
you're interested in seeing some sort of brickwork
Yes.
in that panel. Okay.
yeah, so I
Right.
think, I guess, so if you look from up here, I'm pointing. Can you see where I'm pointing?
I think so. I think to clarify though, so 7 and 5 both have brick down here. The difference was that 7 has sort of a recessed panel. It would be the same brick surrounding it. 5 would have a brick that had a texture to it of some sort or a different pattern or something
Yeah,
to it.
that brick plus the lintel that's up there stands out a little bit. The one just a button now down. Yep,
That
down.
Yeah.
Down below, yeah,
Right there.
it's also brickwork. It's just
I'm just
lines.
throwing lintel. I don't
Yep.
know if to me, that would be
Yep.
what I would call that.
It's
So-
a brick corbelling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that whole brick corbelling, excellent. So that whole setup
Yep.
over, but with number 7 at the top.
Okay.
Does that make sense, guys?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mitch and John, you understand what I'm
Mhm.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's
gotcha.
basic, it's 5 with a clock, I think is what you're saying.
Oh, there you go. 5 with a clock. Why wouldn't I have said that? That would have made much more sense.
You said it's 5 o'clock?
Somewhere. It's 5 o'clock
think-
somewhere.
I think one of our challenges, and Mark and Amy and I have been talking about it, is that when we had the solid base where we had contrast, that we had these 3 elements tied together with the edges of the buildings, the main entry, and Amy can point it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, oh, Mark has to go.
Yeah, I apologize. I need to go
Drum.
watch a middle school band concert. So
Oh, that's
Where
one
his
thing.
daughter is a solo.
Yes,
That is
so I need
you
to-
need to be there.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you very much. I'll see you all later.
Okay, Mark.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mark.
Mark.
Bye-bye.
Thank you as always.
So when we had the original concept that we showed you, we were trying to take this material and sort of highlight special areas. So we highlighted
Mhm.
the entrance with this material, we highlighted the tower with this material, and then we highlighted the end of the building with this material. So, when we start to make this all brick, we start to look at it and go, okay, how are we still carrying that concept through, or how does that concept change? And that's sort of the challenge. And introducing the brick pattern here, does,
It's
where
the
we're not
only
doing it
place we're
anywhere
doing it.
else.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
we, does that work? Does it not work? What are
Why
we
don't we give that
still struggling with
option?
that?
Just a suggestion, and I'd like to know what the rest of the committee thinks, but let's go to design review and see what they think of the brick versus you know what I mean? So have the clock in the, keep going.
Yep, trying to get to 5 here. There we go.
Right, so go ahead with 5 with the clock and all that, but give them the different options like you just talked. Does that make sense? So they can have an option, say, yeah, we
Yeah.
like the contrasting color, or we don't like the contrasting color.
Yep.
I'd really like to know what their opinion is.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we could show them 5 and 7, I guess. 5 and
As long as
7.
5 has a clock on top.
Yes.
5 with a clock.
That's a clock.
I would
think
say,
that
I would say keep the variables down. Don't give them
Yes.
7 choices, give them 2.
No, I think 2. I think 5 and 7 because they are very different. The
Yeah.
the vertical element gets extended, and I think
Yeah.
that's will help the tower. It helps the tower. You can see it there.
Yeah.
Where as opposed to the pattern, which is it's not that I don't like it because I actually drew one with a pattern before that I really liked.
Oh.
But I do like the simplicity of the panels, and we've
I
got
do.
to reconnect these pieces again. I want to emphasize that. You can see on the west side of the elevation, Amy, where the community room is, that also had that higher end. So you had these 2 ends, you had the entry and you had the tower, and those kind of connected all of those pieces together. Which is why we worry that when we all like it without the higher band, but we also worry that we're mucking up the concept a little bit. So we have a little work to do on it, but
Yeah, I really have to trust your judgment on that.
okay.
I do like that side, that elevation. I think that's sharp with the long panels.
Mhm.
So it's just so hard when you look at it, you know, I look at this one, I like this one, and then you go to another one, I like that one, or these-
Yeah.
Go back to 5, Amy, there, and you can see the difference. You don't get that vertical, you get that big
yeah, you don't.
block. It's still nice, but I don't think it's very sophisticated yet. And
Oh.
you know, but it is. I mean, you know, some of this pattern at brickwork is just beautiful that can be done. We worry a little bit with public bid.
Oh, yeah, no, but
So, but anyhow, but you know, what I'm hearing from everybody is everybody likes, Amy, could you go to the village of,
The village, yes.
the village? Mark has created villages of buildings and then signs and all these towers. I think what you see in the progression is the drop down of the masonry material from the top of the tower improves the tower dramatically. I
yeah,
mean, I have to say, and I like the introduction of glazing in that top as opposed to a solid top,
Yeah.
you know, whatever is also a real plus. And we're still working on the windows. We're not sure we have to look at the windows in relationship to the stair behind it. They don't necessarily need to line up with things. They're very rigidly lined up right now. They might not be rigidly lined up in the end. So those are the things we're still working on. But okay.
I have a question about what is the sort of dark green material between the new windows on the tower, sort of,
Oh, up at the top of the tower, Amy.
not at
The,
sorry, not at
Oh,
here?
that one.
yeah, I guess same material, top of the tower, and that's, yeah, where
Yeah.
you have the laser pointer is where I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're thinking that it would be the same metal panel
Okay,
that's used around above the doors and between the doors.
okay.
That's what we were suggesting.
Yeah, I suspect design review is not a fan of metal,
Yeah.
and
And yeah.
I wonder if there are other materials. I like the color, but I wonder if there are other materials in those locations we could look at if there was I don't know, a much darker brick, or I don't know if there's anything.
So one thing we're trying to do at the arch is just get some shadow lines at the big arch.
Yeah.
And trying to push those doors back a little bit. And if we stick with brick and brick, we have to increase the width of the depth of the building to get that recess to happen. So
Gotcha.
we're trying
Okay.
not to do too much of that. So we have that
Mhm.
panel sitting back, what, 8 inches, Amy, give or take? Is that what
I
we
think
looked
so.
at?
I think
Somewhere
that's
like
what we
that.
came up with.
Okay.
Right. And so there are
Yeah.
very few thin materials that do it.
Mhm.
There could be hardy, you know, a hardy product, a fiber cement board. I don't know. You know, we'll look at other things. But brick does create problems. Either
Yeah.
we have to increase the size of the building to
Yeah.
get the recess to work.
Right.
And we also want to, one thing that we think is important on a small building like this is to connect the colors, like the recess and the windows and the doors, all
Yeah.
of them being a very similar color.
Yep.
You don't want like red here, green here, white here. You know, we want to have a consistency to the building to marry it all too. So that's the other thing we're looking at.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
Amy, you have anything else to add to that one?
Yeah, no, I think we've talked a little bit about metal in the office too, and there certainly are lots of historic precedents for metal, in buildings. And look at your library. There's the new
Sure.
edition has a lot of metal, which is really quite
Right.
lovely. So I
A lot.
think, it can be done nicely, and it can be a durable material for the town,
Yeah.
which is the
I'm
other
trying to
thing we
help
want to be.
anticipate questions.
Yeah.
From design review is
I mean-
that I think metal can be done in so many different ways.
Sure. Yeah.
Looking very modern, looking very classic.
Yeah. I don't think this is going to be a shiny,
Right.
silvery metal. We've done
Yeah.
Right.
we had to do for one of our police stations, we had to do an interpretation of of the bay, metal bay, and it ended up being silvery, and they liked it, but it was a more modern building, certainly, but or modern design as requested by the committee, just like you requested this New Englandy look,
Yeah.
they requested something else. And we did a lot of study of in the Back Bay and Beacon Hill of all kind of bays and all kind of things, and there was tons of metal, and the other obviously material was wood.
Mhm.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Janet, because the one thing I want to stay away from is wood.
wood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't,
Yeah.
you put wood on the exterior of this building and you're asking for a maintenance nightmare for the
Yeah,
next 50
definitely.
years.
I think we would probably do like a fiber cement if we were gonna go to
Yeah.
a material like
Yeah.
that, you
Right.
know, and then you paint it and you have to repaint it, but maybe not for 20 years, 30 years,
Right.
you know, sort of
Right.
thing. So,
I think the maintainability, as the chief is saying, sustainability is part of the
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
correct.
Yep.
Okay.
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 All right.
You guys did an awesome job. I really like what you did with the towers. You really did.
Well, we'll tell Mark because he's
And-
been slaving over his village.
Yeah, but yeah. What did the deputy want?
Oh, he was saying, Deb, hang on. I'm gonna let you talk, Deb. Hang on.
Okay.
Go ahead, Deb. Unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, did I turn my camera on? Hold on.
You don't have to. I didn't promote you.
Oh, okay, that good. For me, same. I think all the renditions, Mark did a great job of giving different ideas, but I'm kind of on the same board. I like the kind of brickwork on 5 where the banding is, not the below, with 7.
Okay.
But
Okay.
but I think the chief makes a good point that, some of those, one for design review to see what their kind of input is would be good.
Okay. Terrific.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, Deb.
Goodbye.
One more question while we're looking at the village. In some of these, the windows on the tower are a brighter color than on others. Is that a different window material, or is that just how the rendering ended up happening?
I think it's how the rendering ended up
Yes.
happening there. Yeah. I didn't even notice it until now, but I
I
see what
just
you're
noticed
saying.
it
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
When you don't necessarily notice it when you have the whole image, but when you put them all together, you see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, is that conclude your presentations?
It does. Yeah.
It does. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is public comments. That will be limited to 3 minutes, and do we have anybody waiting that would like to come in?
So if you're in the attendees and you want to speak, could you please raise your hand? I don't see anybody on the phone, so I won't have to go through how you do that. That's just *9. But if you want to raise your electronic hand. I don't see anybody.
Okay. Any other business that legally can come before the committee? Our next meeting is scheduled for the,
Our next meeting is the 28th. Janet and Amy, that'll be for final approval. That'll be your presentation of the cost assessment, right?
Yes.
And you'll need a vote for that as well.
Yes.
Okay, well, anything else need to be on the agenda for that other than minutes?
Only if we have some design things that we want to share with you,
Okay.
at that point, but
Probably
it's really
just-
about cost. It's really about cost. We have another meeting coming up right after that in March. Sometime. So,
You might put design updates on the agenda just.
yeah, I would.
In
I'm
case
only
you have
asking
anything.
because we have a holiday coming up and I want to make sure I get the
Oh,
agenda
yeah.
done in time before and I don't get burned and say, oh no, we can't have the meeting. So
Yeah, I would put the design updates on,
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, terrific.
all right. Do I
All
hear a
right.
motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a
Second.
Here we
Motion's
go.
been made and seconded. Mitch,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Chief,
Yep.
and Dawn, aye. Thank you all.
And
Okay,
if you guys could
thanks.
just send me that presentation in the morning, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Will do.
And thank you for giving us your Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Mm.
Happy
Thanks,
Valentine's Day.
Bye.
I'm going home to eat vegetable soup.
All
Okay.
right.